Alright, this is just a quick walkthrough of how I get my project started over on Ableton from Korg Gadget. So right here you see me exporting the MIDI files as separate files just as a backup in case I can't get into Ableton or Gadget for whatever reason. I have the full MIDI files. I could just open them up separately in whatever program like Logic or anything on iOS as well. Makes it super easy. And then I also, so I just airdrop this. I have notes on there, you can just read the screen here. But here's how I export them to the live project, which I do MIDI first and then audio just for organization. But they're both ALS files. They open up in Ableton, and we'll have that on screen in here in a minute. And then I merge them together. So here's my messy file there for this song called Broken Hammer 3 or Safety in Numbers. So all I'm doing here is making a MIDI file folder, and I'm going to grab all these and throw them in there and then just be done with it. So I got my backup if I ever need them. And then all these songs are backed up in Korg Gadget as well in iCloud, which is very nice because I can open them up on my phone, I can open them on my iPad. I like doing the finished project on the Mac, bigger screen. I missed the touch surface definitely, but I don't want to use Cubases on the Mac for whatever reason. I just like live better for the finishing product because I could select the different scenes, which I really enjoy. It's kind of like remixing the song, which you could kind of do in Gadget, but you have to choose the whole line. You're choosing the whole track, not the track, what's this called? I forget what they're called here. The scene. I always have trouble with this, pulling the MIDI file over. Not always. Occasionally I have trouble doing this, dropping the MIDI file on there. So I'm merging the two files, and you can do this with multiple files at once, which is amazing. So you can have like your whole performance. You can have like 400 tracks in here probably, whatever your CPU will handle. I'm going to take a second to stop talking here because we got music going. Now what we're going to do next is add a MIDI track in here, and we're going to put VS on it. That's a Visual Synthesizer, and then eventually we'll route MIDI into it to trigger Visual Synthesizer. So first things first, we're adding a MIDI track there. Alright. And then we want to make sure that the input is from the other MIDI tracks that we select. VS will show up here. So I'm going to grab the VST here, VS, Visual Synthesizer, throw it down in the bottom area there. It'll load up here. We have our screen. Now we can trigger from audio or MIDI. We're just going to use MIDI to keep it simple here. So I'm choosing my MIDI channel there. And you can choose the smaller output window to minimize it. You can't change the size of VS on the screen, so use the little output window and make it easier. Alright, we're going to try triggering from this channel first of all. There it is. The MIDI is triggering it. There's no sound on there. You can't do a MIDI channel that has a VST audio device on it. So I'm going to choose the same sample playing over there that matches up with that same the MIDI notes. So it's like a copied channel basically. So that's the whole point of adding the MIDI file, the ALS, to the same thing as the audio. So you could trigger it without having to create all new tracks and copying everything over. It would take forever. So this just populates it automatically. And the cool thing is too, it'll keep the same color code of Gadget So when if you use like a launch pad or something else, or like LK or anything like that, you can see the color. For instance, all my drums are brown or whatever the color that is, so I always know that they're going to trigger the exact beat there. And you can record, see that record button inside VS? You can actually record the video directly in there, but you have to route all the audio from every channel in Ableton to VS, which is kind of time consuming, so I just do a screen recording. So these are all materials, different levels. You could have 8 layers of materials, or shaders, whatever you want to call them. So I'm changing there's 2 levels right now, so I'm changing the second one to channel 2 for MIDI, so it'll be triggered by something else. And then I'll go in the bottom of each MIDI channel. You can see it says MIDI 2. Oh, of course I covered that when I'm trying to see it. MIDI 2, 22 and 22 VS, and then right underneath it is another drop-down menu. You have to make sure that that's the correct channel in VS, or it will not trigger it. I'm just gonna let this thing ride out now, and just you can kind of get an idea what I'm doing here on the screen. Clicking all these different clips, and then the same 2 MIDI channels will always trigger in VS. And then we can change the materials, or we could even we could go change the MIDI channel as well, but as far as like what's triggering it in Ableton. Alright, hope all that makes sense. And we'll let it ride out here for a few minutes. Alright, so I should add that I do all the screen recordings with monosnap, and to record your screen you're going to need Blackhole audio, and what it is you set up for an aggregate device. So I'm saving this project as a merged file, so that way I don't have to do that again next time I open it now. So VS will be saved in there, audio and MIDI, the ALS files, all that will be saved in there. And then I just save it as a new name and I just write MIDI, audio, merge, and then I know that. So next time I open it, that's where I start. But back to the screen recording, you have to route the audio into the screen recording from Ableton. So you have to set up an aggregate device. And usually I use Blackhole audio, just simpler. And I get the 16 channel one for my Mac, and then just use 2 channel in it. You can change the aggregate device. And I could show a video of how that is set up as well. But you could just, like I said, but the good thing about VS, you could screen record, or you could just record right into it. And if you route the audio as the master output into VS, I have not figured that out yet, though. I had to route each channel separately, and I'm not sure exactly. It's probably with grouping or something else. But with EvoSuite and Zwobot and all those, I could route directly either into Siphon recorder or another like recorder like that. So it basically is having the output of just the performance and not the whole Ableton thing. So that's the only advantage of doing a screen recording, is you could see what I'm doing in Ableton as well. Alright, I hope this clarifies how I set up my projects, and if you have any questions, just ask on YouTube or wherever. Thank you.